Hey, are you ready to turn your podcast into an authority engine and not just more content? Well, welcome to Influential Voices of Authority. This is the podcast for coaches, consultants, and experts who are ready to stop being the best kept secret in their niche and move to being that respected, sought after authority. I'm your host, Erik K. Johnson, podcast talent coach and media veteran. In each episode of Influential Voices of Authority, I sit down with industry leaders and visibility experts to uncover how they use their voice, their message, and their platform to build trust, grow their audience, and attract premium clients. If you're ready to do just that, this is where it begins. Welcome to Influential Voices of Authority. Today, we're talking about branding and how you create your own personal brand to attract people to you rather than chasing down clients and customers. You know, most podcasters think they need more downloads, or they need more content, or they need better guests, or they need more consistency, but they don't. You don't need more downloads and more listeners. You need the right listeners. And to do that, you need authority. You need positioning. You need trust. You need to build that powerful personal brand that leads to a monetization strategy and a relationship system. And that's what I help you grow through authority engineering. When we go through your podcast authority audit, we dive deep into that to uncover where your authority is leaking and what you're doing that is destroying your own personal brand. You can find all those details over at podcasttalentcoach.com/coaching and get all the details right there. But what I want you to walk away from this episode understanding is that content alone does not create clients. You need authority. You need a strong personal brand. And that's why I've invited Gerry Foster on the show today. Gerry is amazing. He's the founder of the Big Brand Formula. It shows service-based entrepreneurs like you, coaches and consultants, information experts, how to create a big brand, how to create a strong message that sells, even if you have a small budget, which is fantastic. He helps you excite, ignite, and delight the market that you're selling to. Gerry's known as the brand evangelist, which is fantastic. He's impacted over 100,000 small businesses from over 600 different industries with their branding. And you say, how can he do that? How can he impact over 100,000? Well, Gerry started his brand development and training company back in 1985. He's been doing it quite a while. And he's here on the show today to show you how to elevate your brand and how to take you to the next level. So enjoy my conversation with Gerry Foster. Gerry, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure, Erik. I tell you, you're a rock star, and I'm just thrilled to be here.
Oh, I can't wait for this conversation. You know, you've been an incredibly popular speaker when it comes to branding on all sorts of stages, live stages, summits, virtual events, everywhere from Dubai to San Diego. But back in the day, you had a couple podcasts, and I really want to understand how you used those podcasts to really grow your authority and your influence in the branding space.
Well, my first podcast was called A Big Brand Formula, which I launched in 2019. And I used that for quite a while. Oh, my goodness, at least another 6 or 7 years. And I would do two things. I would go ahead and record a lot of content around big branding on some of the key areas that a lot of people want to hear about when it comes to branding themselves in particular. And of course, I had a lot of guests. And at the time, I would include it with my packaging in terms of how I marketed myself and how I presented myself to people to know that I had this podcast.
And would that attract people? Would that bring them into your world?
It really did, because it signified that I must be someone worth listening to or interacting with. And big branding, particularly the kind of branding that I do for services and skills as opposed to product branding, that's huge. It's huge, even more so today because of the growth on the internet. And so when people heard that I had my podcast, and I mean, I got a lot of listeners. I mean, at one time it was around 10,000 or so. It was great.
That's fantastic. You get on a lot of stages. You're always speaking. Tell me a little bit about um, how you make connections with people and how that fits into the sales funnel that you use.
Well, my specialty is showing entrepreneurial consultants and experts, in other words, service-based entrepreneurs, how to create a big brand and a strong message that sells so they can excite, delight, and ignite their market, which makes it a lot easier to get clients. Now that has evolved now to the present day where it's more around authority branding. And so the idea is to let these folks know that you don't want to be looked upon as just another penguin in the group, another person in your industry, in your space doing what you do. It's all about distinguishing yourself. It's all about differentiation. And so more so than ever, people are really wondering what's it going to take to stand out, get noticed, and be remembered so that you can be rewarded for your individuality.
And that's the key is getting people to remember you. And
Yeah.
I tell so many clients that AI can copy your 6 steps to success faster than you can. You need to add a little some of you into there and some of your personality to really start to connect with people. There was a day back in the day where you realized you really had authority in the branding space. Like people, it hit you that people wanted to know what you know. Tell me about that day where you realized that was really happening for you.
Well, I've been in the branding space now for over 40 years. I mean, Eric, I majored in marketing with deep study in branding at USC, University of Southern California. And so I got my BS degree and my MBA degrees with honors, yada, 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 at SC. And then when I graduated, I went to work for P&G. Now, if you know anything about branding, you think of P&G. I mean, they're one of the biggest branders on the planet. And that's where I carved my branding teeth. And then I started my brand development and training company way back in 1985, believe it or not. And I've made branding my life's work. I live and breathe branding. I love all things branding. And so I think the word spread that unlike most Americans who change their job 10 to 12 times in a lifetime, Eric, I've never done anything else but branding. And so
So
people,
that day, that first day where you leave P&G and you hang up your shingle and you're now your own business. Tell me about that first client you got and what kind of emotions you were going through when that happened.
well, when I came out of P&G, I did work for another company in the juice and drink industry. And
Okay.
but nonetheless, the question remains the same. When I got my first client, I'll never forget it. I believe he was an accountant or CPA or someone, and I was just so thrilled to be working with someone. Now, remember, back in those days, there was no internet, so everything was face to face. And so to have the opportunity to put my branding skills and marketing skills to use for the benefit of someone else really was a big deal to me.
What'd that do for your confidence to know that you didn't need the the big monster of P&G or the juice company behind you, that you could stand on your own 2 feet and do it yourself?
Absolutely. And I tell you, I was out there without a net, man. I had to figure this out on my own because back then you didn't have the kind of resources like we have now, right? I mean, it was all about, hey, can you find a good book to read or or some cassette tapes? Remember cassette tapes from
Oh,
speakers?
absolutely.
So when I realized that I did not have that kind of resource behind me, it was tough because, as you know, there's no paycheck, no steady paycheck, and so I did something very innovative. I'll never forget it. In terms of professional speaking, I started speaking in 1986. Okay, and that the next year I started my own branding and marketing boot camp, and 10 people showed up. It was great. And so that started the journey not only for doing the private one-on-one coaching, but the group coaching as well. Because in those classes, I got a lot of great feedback and interaction because I love to teach, Eric. I was teaching in the evenings and weekends as an adjunct professor of branding, marketing, and advertising over a 10-year period at 4 different universities. And my mom was a teacher as well. But it was very nerve-wracking because it was tough, man. I I was robbing Peter to pay Paul sometimes to pay my bills, and I robbed Peter so much that Paul even went broke, and he went broke. I mean, it was crazy, and so it's one of these things where you're leveraging the equity in your house, you're paying things off with a credit card, and long story short, I ended up filing bankruptcy 3 times.
Oh, dang.
3 times. Now, this is all last century, okay? This is a
Yeah,
long
right.
time
Right.
ago. Nonetheless, the most difficult thing for me, Eric, was that I checked all the boxes for entrepreneurial success. I mean, USC, 2 degrees, P&G, yada yada yada. But yet, when when I realized that I knew a lot about how to brand products and things of that nature, I didn't know how to brand, let alone market myself. And so I kind of had to figure it out on my own. I blazed my own trail, and that was tough.
When did that flywheel start to spin? When did you get it and really start to make some headway in that?
After the third bankruptcy, because I found myself
Did
always,
something click? Like you
yeah,
file third bankruptcy, right? And you're like,
I
It's the third time. Like you
I
think I
know
would have learned after the second. Like, what's going
exactly.
on here? What
Oh my,
changed for you?
I was constantly frustrated and depressed, and so I said I've had enough, and that was what propelled me to create the Big Brand Formula, because I realized that I could help a lot of people at one time, and I'll never forget when I launched my first boot camp, because even though I started that before the bankruptcies, after the third one, I really went hard at it, and I started looking for ways to speak on more stages, and I became this super popular speaker on the circuit in Orange County, California, where I lived. And I would speak at chambers and business conferences, whoever would want to listen to me, service clubs, you name it, dude. I was there.
Yeah, when you can start getting that visibility and word of mouth starts to spread because you start doing something worth talking about,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden it starts to take off for you. You've
Yeah,
been
it really
working in
does.
branding for decades now. What do most where do most entrepreneurs fall down when it comes to branding?
Believing that visibility is what's key, whereas the key is differentiation,
Okay.
and also falling into this box of believing that marketing is the holy grail, that all they need is a message, a funnel, and a good offer. I mean, it's not that simple. And so, what I do now is that I help service based entrepreneurs become the obvious choice in their industry by creating an unmistakable authority brand around and anchored in what makes them different, what makes them unique, and more importantly, what makes them unrivaled. So
Can you
that,
give me an example of how you've of a particular client you've helped pivot like that?
oh, absolutely. I did some work a few years ago with a woman who was a health and wellness coach, and she was blending in with the rest of the crowd. And so, what I was
Yeah,
able
there's
to do,
there's a health and wellness coach like you can't swing a cat without hitting three of them.
exactly. Now, yeah, that's good. That's funny. Well, you know what it is, Eric? A lot of people are really good at what they do, but they struggle to get people to choose them instead of someone else who offers something similar. And so, what I did with her was I rooted her branding around those things that truly set her apart. In other words, I said to her, listen, we've got to get people to notice you, remember you, and choose you. And that's going to require tapping into what is it about you that makes you special and distinct. And so for her, a lot of it pivoted around her unrivaled delivery system. There's a certain kind of framework area that you have to have if you're putting out any kind of service, any kind of skill, talent, or ability. Because here's one of the mistakes that so many entrepreneurs make, and that's thinking that all they got to do is make a lot of noise to get people to notice them online. But wait a minute, you're not offering a product, you're selling the invisible. Now, think about that for a second. You're selling vapor. You can't say to someone, hey, I've got something great that you can see, taste, touch, smell, or hear. And so, my forte is how to brand the invisible. And so, in the case of that young lady, she ended up making more money in the first quarter of 2024 than she did in 2022 and 2023 combined, because I got her to tap into her genius to nail down what is it that you are good at that very few other people can do the way you can do it, and and deliver the results that you do. And so a lot of the work that I do today is really showing people how to stand in their authority by making sure that they're no longer unclear or overlooked or being blended in with the rest of the crowd. Because unless you're distinct, you risk being extinct. However, I tell my clients and students that you were born to stand out and not blend in.
Yeah, absolutely. So once she made that change in her approach,
Yeah.
what happened to her business?
Oh, like I said, she made more money in the first quarter of 2024 than she did in 2023 and 2022 combined.
That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, because it's all about making sure that people pay attention to you. But see, that has to precede your marketing, okay? Because the job of marketing is to do what? To get people to know about you. Branding's job is to get people to realize that you are someone they should pay attention, and then marketing takes over to make that connection occur.
Yeah,
So
I
if
see that a lot. I see that a lot of people get out there and they're visible, they're respected, they have great content, but they're not strongly positioned in their niche. They don't have a strong brand that magnetically attracts people to them. And they get so frustrated because they're like, my content's great. What I teach, I know what I teach works, but nobody's coming to me, and they struggle because respected doesn't necessarily equal strongly positioned.
That's right. And so they end up feeling invisible, generic, or stuck on how to express what makes them different. Because, see, if the job of branding is to get you known, so marketing can take over to get you found, then selling can do what it has to do, which is to get you paid. You have to get known, get found, and get paid. So think about that. If you're a service-based entrepreneur, it could be a coach, consultant, a professional of any type, if you're feeling unclear, if you're feeling overlooked, and if you're tired of blending in, then you've got to sort of step back and allow yourself to not feel overwhelmed by what's happening in your industry, and clearly define what makes your brand unique and what is it that's going to anchor your marketing so that your marketing can do what you need it to do. And a lot of times people who work with me are insecure when it comes to them being compared to their competition, who, in their opinion, seem to have a stronger identity. And so they become disheartened by their slow progress. They're stressed by the pressure to prove their worth. But after working with me, they feel clear, confident, and unmistakable because we have created a personal brand. That's my forte, an authority brand that truly reflects their value, who they are, what they bring to the marketplace, so that people see them as the right choice.
When people understand that, and they understand they need to lean into their own personal brand and what makes them unique and
Yeah.
different from everybody else in a way that nobody else can copy, because it's
Right.
your journey, your story, and the only the way you've done it. What do you see as the biggest challenges people run into when they try and implement that?
Like I said, I think a big problem is they have to realize that things have to be done in the right sequence. And the sequence is brand, market, sell. That's the foolproof business model of the most successful companies in America, if not abroad, regardless of size, which is they want to put out a brand as opposed to a service. So the first thing they have to go ahead and sort of embrace is that in this country today, it's all about your brand. However, a brand is more than a logo, is more than what people can see. And so if your marketing is not working, it's probably because your branding is not right. And so what I do is I get them grounded in their identity. I get them to feel more secure about their value and get them ready to show up the right way so that people do notice, remember, and choose them. Now, that takes some deep dive work. in terms of tapping into, hey, what is it about you? The way you think, the way you solve, the way you serve, unlike no one else in your space. And that's what I pull out because a lot of times they're too close to themselves to figure that out.
Hey, I hope you're loving my conversation with Gerry and the importance of creating your personal brand. Well, your personal brand all starts with authority. Where is your authority leaking out of your podcast? Where are you doing the things that are creating a detrimental effect in your podcast? Well, let me audit it and find the gaps because you know you're publishing good content. You've stayed consistent. All the episodes are out there, yet you're not being seen as the authority in your niche. The podcast isn't creating the level of influence and opportunity that you expected. People are listening to your show, but they're not taking action. You sound professional, but you're not unforgettable. And it weakens your brand. And it all starts with your authority because consistency alone doesn't create authority. Intentional leadership does. And if you're ready to turn your podcast into an authority engine and not just more content, let me audit your podcast. Let me audit it and find the gaps. If you head over to podcasttalentcoach.com/coaching, you can click the button right there. You can apply to have a chat with me. We'll uncover your authority positioning problems. We'll develop a plan to help you succeed. And I'll show you how I can support you to develop your podcast and achieve those goals. Again, get all the details over at podcasttalentcoach.com/authority. Now back to my conversation with Gerry Foster. Give me an example of somebody that you've worked with that just had a really unique brand story within them that they just didn't realize until you turned the mirror on them and really pointed it out for them.
Well, another one that comes to mind is a young lady who does a lot of energy work and healing work in that whole space. And she once told me that her market was so saturated and so competitive. If you start looking at, not, I don't want to call it woo-woo, but if you get into the energy type healers. Now you ask yourself, well, how are you going to set yourself apart? How are you going to distinguish yourself? And so with her, I got her to answer some of the tough questions in terms of, well, what problems can you solve unlike most other people? What is it about the way you do what you do that makes your clients feel very proud to work with you? In other words, a lot of questions that most people aren't even thinking about because they're so busy believing that if they offer great services, if they offer good skills, for example, then the world is going to be the path to their door. So in her case, we established her unique identity and we got her to distinguish herself in a very competitive market. And the sky was the limit after that.
Yeah, when you can step into your own brand identity, your own personal identity, nobody can copy that because only you've traveled that journey and lived your life. Only you have your perspective and your opinion. And
Yeah.
so lean into it. And when
Yeah.
it comes to building your brand and building your authority in the space, what's your secret sauce? What's that first step people should take?
Well, the first thing I do is I have to wipe away the cobwebs of them believing that marketing is the holy grail and that marketing is all they need. And it's more about them embracing the golden triangle I was sharing about and being willing to accept the fact that branding comes first and then you market after that. So that's the first thing. Now, within that, the deep dive work that I do starts with what's your purpose? What's your calling? What's your mission? What's your vision? And when I say that, I don't mean the kind of vision or mission statement that you're going to find online if you were to Google that topic for some Fortune 1000 company. But it's more about what is your God, your higher power, whoever, whatever that may be. If you call that higher power God or the spirit that created the universe, it doesn't matter. But if you are aligned with who you are and why you're on this planet, let's nail down and declare what that is. What is your divine assignment if you're with me on this? What is it about the gifts that you have and the impact that you're supposed to make out there for the people you're being called to serve. And then the rest of your authority brand has to flow from your calling, which then leads to the next level, which is let's find your quote unquote, which is commonly called your blue ocean, if you've ever heard that word, which
Oh
is
yeah.
what is it? Where can we plant your flag in market space that nobody else is occupying around an idea that you can solve problems or deliver outcomes or provide unique value that nobody else can. And let's express that in a very, few set of words, and it will serve as your bumper sticker, your banner headline on your social media, right? Be it LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. And then from there, let's morph that into a me only statement, which allows you to say that I'm the only humma humma that can do humma humma. Okay.
Absolutely.
Because Eric, you've got to be me only and not me too or me also. And so many service-based entrepreneurs are not distinguishing themselves. And so in the eyes of their target audience, like I said, they're just another bird in the flock. They're just a slice in the loaf. They're just a carton of milk because they really haven't taken the time to distinguish themselves around those unique traits that allow them to pull something off on behalf of their clients that nobody else can. And that becomes their framework. That becomes their secret sauce. That becomes their way of delivering things that you can now really pivot on. And that can be the thing that will take you to a much higher income level because it can become proprietary in terms of the way that you serve that nobody else can.
Yeah, you're singing my song. I always encourage people to stop trying to be the best in your category and go be a category of one. Be only you, the only way you can be. And that's the way you're going to separate yourself from everybody else.
And Eric, I'll tell you something else. Today, going back to your question, one of the things I also have to do is to get them to not believe that AI is the answer.
Oh
That all you
yeah,
got to do is
absolutely.
go into Chat GPT. No, 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 it doesn't work like that. Now we can harness the power of AI, absolutely. But when it comes to you and what makes you special and what makes you unique, what is it? What is it that we have to tap into so that you are fully recognized for the value that you bring? And when we can allow that person to proclaim, I am truly offering something unique, I'm not just another player in the market, then we can do what? We can clearly articulate what sets you apart and get you to feel like you are now creating a stronger brand identity sooner than later and using as a partner in this journey AI a certain way because there's certain prompts, there's certain commands that I know of that I possess with my proprietary work, okay, to get AI to help us in this endeavor. So I'm not saying ignore it, but let it just be another part of your team.
Yeah, use it as a proper tool that it should be designed to be
Yeah,
used as. You have a
exactly.
great online quiz that kind of helps people figure out where they stand when it comes to crafting their brand. Tell me a little bit about that, how it works, and what kind of results we get from it.
Eric, I'm so proud of that quiz. I launched that quiz way back in, I think, 2015. I was one of the original people. When I say people, meaning coaches that had a quiz. I'm not kidding. Think about that. 11 years ago. In fact, the woman who owned the company, her name was Jane Duber, and I ran into her at JBX a couple of years ago, right, a conference, and she came up to me and she said, I never told you this, but you were one of my guinea pigs. Now, that quiz, which is at bigbrandquiz.com, oh my God, it has helped and blessed so many service-based entrepreneurs because what I have them do is simply rate themselves on a scale of what is it, 1 to 5 in 25 critical areas. And these are critical areas where once they rate themselves on that scale, they get to see where they're strong and where they're weak and what the missing pieces may be that could be hurting or hindering their success and their progress, and they're not even aware of it. And so once they submit their answers, they receive a report of findings that lays out these are the critical areas that you need to pay attention to. And my God, I've got nothing but compliments over the years from people. They just love taking my quiz.
That's fantastic. Bigbrandquiz.com. Bigbrandquiz.com is where you can find Gerry's quiz. That's amazing. I love great tools like that help us find the blind spots, help us
Yeah.
discover what we don't know about our journey.
Yeah.
So you've gone through these three bankruptcies and you've learned so much from that back in the day, and now you've had decades of success since then. If you were to go back and launch this whole thing, the big brand all over again, what would you do a little differently other than not go bankrupt?
I would seek out the wisdom of others. Back then, I was blazing my own trail. And even though I didn't have the access like we have today, there were still ways to connect. I mean, I did join NSA, National Speakers Association, and I became a frequent networker because that's what we had to do. Remember back in the days, it was all about what was going on within a 3 to 5 mile radius of where you lived, right? There was no such thing as the online, right? But what I would do differently is I would have sought counsel because, like I said, I blazed my own trail and I had to figure it out myself. And when I look back at it, I had no idea what I was doing. I think one of the big mistakes I made were two. One was that some of the principles and approaches and methods that were used in corporate America could work for me as a small business owner, and that's two different worlds. And number two, I failed to recognize, and I talked about this earlier, that the way you go about branding products is not the same as branding services. Because a lot of what I was doing starting out is I was using some of those product branding and marketing tactics, which is not appropriate when you're branding and selling the invisible.
Well, that's so true in today's world too, because so many new entrepreneurs and solopreneurs go look at Tony Robbins or Gary Vaynerchuk or Russell Brunson, and they think I'm going to do exactly what they're doing. And you have to realize you don't have their team, you don't have their decades of
Yeah.
experience, you don't have their private jet or their money to do what they're doing.
Their resources. Yeah,
Yeah,
I know.
we need to slow your roll a little bit, and we need to do it something a little bit different. So that's fantastic insight. I love that.
Yeah, and that's why I love what you do because one of the things that I tell a lot of service-based entrepreneurs is let people see you as the authority in your space, in your specialty, in your field. Start a podcast, get on stages, give talks, do something to signify a level of category leadership in what you do. And the more you can do that, people are going to see that you're in a class by yourself. So I commend you, my friend, because even in my podcasting days, I mean, I had two podcasts. I mean, my God, I got it. I mean, I was interviewing people in the whole 9 yards. And so it was great.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the kind words. Gerry, you're amazing when it comes to branding. I love that we spent a little time together diving into it and telling your story and giving people some nuggets they can take away and use in their own personal brand. So thanks for being here, and I can't wait until we do it again.
Oh, thank you so much. And you are memorable, you are focused, and you are delightful. So the privilege and the pleasure was all mine.
Big thanks to Gerry Foster for joining us on the show today. He is fantastic. Now you know why he's the brand evangelist. You be sure to grab Gerry's gift. You can get that. Take the quiz online to gauge where you stand on the 10 components of a world-class brand. You're going to receive the report findings that will reveal where you are strong in your branding and how you can leverage those strengths. You will also see where you need to amp up your branding or consider outsourcing it to someone else. And finally, you'll get the branding ideas to focus on for bigger impact and greater profits. All of it is over at bigbrandquiz.com. So get that at bigbrandquiz.com. And if you're ready to take your podcast to greater heights and you're serious about growing your business, let me help you with my podcast audit. My podcast authority audit deep dives into your podcast. This isn't just some nice 5-star review that tells you how great you are. We deep dive in 5 specific areas in order to help you elevate your personal brand and help you elevate your authority so that you start attracting clients to you. You can get all those details over at podcasttalentcoach.com/coaching. That's my podcast authority audit. It's at podcasttalentcoach.com/coaching. Next week, we will talk with vocal leadership and communication coach, Dr. Leslie Bayless Davis. She is amazing. She's going to give you 5 keys to radiate authority every time you speak. That happens next week here on Influential Voices of Authority. Thanks for being here again this week. It's always great to see you. Can't wait until we do it next time. In the meantime, step into that authority.